Welcome back to OTR. As you can see, we've assembled the roundtables. Too bad we don't have anything to talk about this morning, right? We have nothing, right?
Oh.
Joining us,
There's so much.
political
There's so
analyst
much.
Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Let's start with the conversation that we had this morning. Our guest talking about the migrant situation. Let's remove the word crisis, but it will be a housing crisis or a shelter crisis. You could label it that. So let's talk about how Beacon Hill is responding. The House Speaker Ron Mariano pushing through limits on services. Governor Healey facing shrinking revenue numbers to deal with it all. On the Hill, are they getting it right, Marianne?
First, I want to say how fortunate is Massachusetts to have people like David and Danielle dealing with this challenge. They are compassionate, kind, caring, and trying to do the right thing in the face of such challenges. It's amazing. So thankfully, they're here. I think everyone's doing the best they can, which is what you heard from them. I mean, here we are, a little bit of a budget challenge right now. No help from Washington, no help from everywhere. It's like, again, building the plane as you're flying it.
Right.
And I think, but I think the structure that was added will help sustain it and keep it operating. And I do think maybe the deadlines might help move the second part of the process a little quicker so migrants have the chance to get a job, get on their feet, get into a home of their own. Building
a plane as it's flying it's an interesting analogy, and I think it fits, Rob.
Sure, but at the same time, politicians are avoiding the central issue, which is that Massachusetts is a right to shelter state, and it's full of sanctuary cities on top of that. I think New York City Mayor Eric Adams, you see him confronting their status as a sanctuary city, trying to change it. The influx is here. The influx is in New York City. Look at Connecticut. They don't have the influx we have. They're not a right to shelter state. So politicians are avoiding the central issue, even though it's blowing a $1 billion hole in the budget. That being said, it is a federal issue. We have to get control of the border first. I'd like to hear more Healey saying more about Joe Biden taking executive action to do it, although Republicans have messed this up on the national scale, too, politically, as we saw last night.
$1 billion this year alone, $1 billion last year, probably another billion next year, if this continues.
I think everybody's just hoping it's going to go away and become less of a problem. But I don't see it doing so.
All right, let's turn.
Just one last thing. I mean, to Rob's point, yeah, we got to get control of the border. And imagine if the House would just take up that wonderful little bipartisan Senate bill that would do just that.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, we called the politics on that a long time ago. Republicans blew the politics.
All right, let's turn to the State of the Union, where the border was and immigration was also a focus. It was a feisty, fiery, Republicans criticized as partisan address, just some of the descriptions of an energetic President Joe Biden. Did he get done what he needed to get done, Marianne?
Joe Biden came out swinging.
You say he delivered.
He delivered, and then he grabbed America by the collar and said, look, this is what's going on here. This is America. This is what we stand for. This is who we are. This is the greatest country on earth, and show our allies that too. That's what's at stake here, all of our rights. And in the meantime, drawing a sharp contrast of Donald Trump, without naming him, my predecessor, and Republicans who want to tear down our country, tear down our democracy, install a dictatorship. The choice could not be more stark, and the whole campaign was the first 10 minutes of that speech.
What do you think, Rob?
It was a highly caffeinated speech. Okay. But I think it was a smart speech. I think Biden did what he needed to do. He showed energy to combat the he's too old thing. He took on Trump directly in a way that I think he's looking to rally his progressive base. Biden, we saw a lot of those signals that night. Was it statesmanly in terms of, a State of the Union, traditional? No, it was not. But I think Biden did the right thing politically.
It was a campaign speech.
It was.
Yeah. And even at the end, he talked about his age. Hey, listen to that. This is the elephant in the room. Boom, here's the age. And he talked about age.
He had a good night. But let's keep in mind, right, State of the Unions don't move the numbers, really. So he had a good week, but it's kind of like, hey, you're losing the game, 21-7, and you just had a great drive. That doesn't mean you're going to win the game.
Sometimes you're losing 28-3, and then you do win, so stand by. The next thing we want to talk about is the GOP response. There was plenty of response in the House chamber, but the official Republican response is this. It came from a kitchen table in Alabama. That is Senator Katie Britt. She called the president dithering and diminished, but her speech had some head-scratching moments as well. Rob, what did you think?
It was tough to watch. It really was. I think 2 minutes in, you had to conclude this is a disaster. Now, I don't totally blame Senator Britt. I mean, the whole Republican operation is in charge of the setting and the tradecraft of this, but they got it completely wrong. She looked like she was acting. She did this whispering thing. It was very cringeworthy, I'm sorry to say.
Well, I mean, the curse of the Republican
Yes.
response to the presidential address continues, and Katie Britt ended her career on
Ended her
Thursday. Ended her
career.
career. She had this dark dystopian view of the world. She looked like she was wrapped up in the Handmaid's Tale and taking everybody behind her. And the contrast with Joe Biden, who gave an energetic but sunny, optimistic view of America. I mean, she replaced Bobby Jindal and Marco Rubio as the very worst responses ever. She was worse than
Don't
them.
forget
She's done.
Tim Kaine with the eyebrow.
Well, there's
Oh, yeah.
that,
So,
but I
yeah.
mean, she's
Yeah.
done.
All right, Super Tuesday takeaways. No big surprises in Massachusetts, but the number of voters associated with the Democrat and Republican parties continues to fall. Around 27% in this state for Democrats, just over 8% for Republicans. A whopping 64% are unenrolled. What does that say, Rob?
Well, parties have problems right now. There's less participation in primaries nationwide. That's because people are fleeing away from parties. That being said, there's not really a third way yet that's developed in terms of presidential campaigns. Nationally, RFK Jr., if he's on the ballot, Trump is advantaged by about a point over where he is in a head-to-head with Biden. So that could hurt Biden. But I think people are just going to grin and bear it here, and that's what they're going to have to do. I mean, 73% of people don't like either candidate.
27% for Democrats in Massachusetts, Marianne.
Yeah, but the majority of unenrolled voters vote Democratic. But the most interesting thing about these facts and figures from the primary earlier last week was the fact that when you look at the numbers, you look at all that, 15,000 of them changed their registration from Democrat to unenrolled. And that was to really cast a protest vote against Trump by voting for Haley. If you go to the trouble to do that, you're coming back in November and voting for Biden.
Anecdotally, in the town that I live in, I saw 5 examples of that, and I'm not exaggerating, of that very step that you talk about.